And on the femicide issue, we are joined in studio by Annah Moyo from the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation. Thank you very much for joining us. Yes, I mean, I would love to meet you to talk on different, circumstances, but it would appear we always meet to talk about this femicide issue, which seems to be a reality.
It is indeed a crisis that it has reached a crisis in the country. It is really a major problem that we really need to tackle as a matter of urgency. Now,
another reality is that we have noted lately that, and I mean, femicide obviously means that this is a domesticated, occurrence. But these are people who purport to love one another.
Yes, and that is where the crisis is. Matters of violence by intimate partners, people who are in an intimate relationship, which also fuels reasons why we don't hear much of it unless when someone has actually died, as we have heard of the cases of the few women who, Zolile Khumalo, just to mention a few, Karabo Mukwena, and also Jabulile Nhlapo, amongst others, where actually when it reaches this level, that's when we start to hear about it. So really, it is problematic. It's intimate violence, intimate matters, and intimate kind of abuse that really happens within that space, a private space, and in most cases, within the home of the very woman who becomes a victim.
Now, look, another reality is that whereas we have seen the MECs at the home of the deceased, I mean, visitors are going to fade away from that home starting from next week. There won't be no minister, there won't be no MEC going there. But this scourge remains in the community. The police in this instance are being pointed at to say there was a protection order. You failed this person. Is this a common occurrence?
It is a common occurrence. I think just from the Center of the Study of Violence and Reconciliation, we are really worried that even victims of femicide are becoming younger and younger. And not only that, we are hearing these cases when someone has died and we hear of evidence of reports at police stations and protection orders being violated and police do not do anything about it. Yet our criminal justice system is very clear. Where a protection order has been violated, the perpetrator must be arrested, but we don't see this happening.
Now, talking about young people, there are a lot of reports on social media. Is it helping? Because some post to say, hey, please help me, is it helping? Is social media bringing something good except gossip?
I think what really social media is doing is that it's helping to bring these matters to the fore. It's bringing these cases to the public domain, which is a good thing, which then also calls for strategies to actually deal with the scourge of femicide, also to target social media as well as a tool to really fight against femicide and violence against women. So our strategies also need to actually target the platforms that the youth are frequent in order to communicate and to pass on messages. So what are we doing? What tools are we putting in place to actually ensure that the social media platforms also become the conveyors of the messages to actually deal with the scourge of violence and actually to prevent femicide in South Africa?
But the twist to that, though, is also that young people or victims of this violence before it becomes femicide may be scared to speak out or approach relevant authorities. Because by the time you opt to send something on social media, you're basically saying, I probably cannot personally or physically go to a facility or something of that sort. Are women still scared of speaking out? So
there is definitely, on the one side, a culture of silence around issues of domestic violence and also violence against women. On the one side, there is the stigmatization that is still attached to it, and also some of the myths, the cultural myths and practices where women are often blamed for having done something to cause the men to beat them or to even be violent against them. So all of those collectively really contribute to the culture of silencing around cases of violence against women. But also, just to add again, in most cases, the socioeconomic conditions that women find themselves in also become an enabler for perpetuation of violence against women, especially in instances where women find themselves at the mercy of an abuser who is also a breadwinner, who can cajole and coerce them to drop charges. We've heard of incidents as well of cases that are opened at police stations, and a few days later or a few hours later, women go back to the police station to withdraw cases. So we really need a multifaceted approach to dealing with these cases that really targets the cultural issues or the cultural enablers of violence against women on the one hand. Also, we need to tackle the socioeconomic conditions of women who find themselves at the mercy of abuse and also violence against women, and also who become victims of femicide in South Africa. But also we need to target the criminal justice system. What is it about the criminal justice system that is failing these women to the extent that we end up with cases of femicide on our hands?
Yeah, you've touched on something very, very important, because you get a Tami somewhere. Just because he's a business person, you know, he can afford to sort of silence his victim. And the victim is at his mercy because maybe Tami also employs her brother and, you know, things like those. And poor women are left helpless, because once Tami withholds his financial resources, it means she's going to suffer. So she must choose between getting Tami arrested or having Tami roam around freely and possibly come to abuse her again.
Definitely, or even we end up with a case of femicide on our hands because of the escalation of the violence. It can be a beating today, but tomorrow it can be killing or murdering the woman. So really it is problematic, and that kind of toxic masculinity really is what we also need to tackle as a society. But again, it's the normalization of violence in South Africa that is also at the core of these issues. And power dynamics as well are at play, as you rightly say, Paul. If the perpetrator or the abuser holds a position of power, for instance, it means that the woman then becomes helpless to even deal with the issue, and sometimes because also of the economic hold that the abuser may have over his victim. So that really also begins to play a big role, and we see this a lot, especially in cases where the abuser actually is a breadwinner as well, where women feel helpless to report because the very next day they want money for school fees for the children. They want money to buy bread or to buy food, and if the abuser is in jail, and this is some of the stories that women actually share, to say, yes, I understand he has abused me, but I can't report him. Where will I get money tomorrow? If he's in jail, who's going to support us? So the power dynamics are a very real and a major threat, especially in dealing with these cases of femicide and also violence against women in South Africa. So we really need strategies that really begin to deal with the various facets of the problem and the challenges that we face.
Winnable?
We can take steps towards winning the war against femicide and violence against women. There is a lot more to be done. We acknowledge that some steps have been taken and that there are some strategies in place, especially the laws that are in place, but there is need for accountability. There is need also to do more than what is being done already to really deal and tackle these issues, to deal with these issues.
Annah Moyo, thank you very much for your time. And as we go on with our news, the Red Meat Abattoir